Welcome back to the OSM channel. This is my homemade barrel stove style maple syrup evaporator. Now in late winter when the temperatures are just right, I will go around my property and I will tap all my maple trees, collect that sap, which the sap, when you collect it out of the tree, sugar concentration's normally 1 to 2%, but I'll bring that over to the evaporator about once a week. I will boil that sap down into a concentrate and eventually I'll turn that sap into syrup. It's a really enjoyable hobby. It's a great way to get out of the house, especially when you're stuck inside all winter long. But this will be my second season manufacturing homemade maple syrup. Now the first season, I didn't have any type of shelter, which I don't mind the cold, but when you throw in the wind and the wet weather, it makes you really want to have some type of shelter. And also this year, I'm just about doubling the amount of taps I have, so I'm expecting to spend about double the amount of time outside this winter boiling the sap down. So this season I decided I definitely want to have some type of shelter. Now if I wanted to go the cheap route, I could just purchase a 10 by 10 pop-up tent, some plastic sides. That would work, but I don't like the idea of having plastic close to the evaporator because this thing gets pretty hot. So I decided that I wanted to have something a little bit more robust. Not to mention we get a lot of wildlife in my area. I've had a few run-ins with bears and I wanted something that provided a bit more protection. All right, so this is where things get a bit complicated. So I want to build this structure, which in the industry, maple syrup industry, we call this a sugar shack. Now, my county is very heavily regulated, and this is where things get tricky. So if I want to build a structure larger than 10 by 10 square feet, I had to get a zoning permit. Now, if I build a structure larger than 10 by 20, I also need a building permit, which means I need a set of plans presented to the building department, and the building inspector is going to come out, and then the tax assessor is probably going to come out, and then they're going to want to raise the property taxes. So this gets very tricky. Now, there are exemptions for agricultural buildings, which I would clarify this as an agricultural building if I were to build it, as a building, which you'll understand what I'm talking about here shortly. But I would classify this structure as a group use utility structure, and it's an agricultural building because we're taking what Mother Nature gave us and we're turning it into an agricultural product, maple syrup. Now, here's the tricky thing with agricultural buildings. Now, a lot of agricultural buildings are exempt from building codes and certain permits in a lot of jurisdictions. However, when I look at the specific wording, in order to qualify for an agricultural building exemption, it must be a commercial farm. Now, unfortunately, the amount of acreage I have here doesn't meet the minimum requirements to get farmland assessment and ultimately call this a commercial farm. So that's kind of out the window. So if I wanted to build a sugar shack as a permanent structure, it would definitely trigger the requirement for a zoning permit, which I don't want to get permits. I don't want no building inspectors here. I don't want my taxes to increase. So I wonder if we can build a structure but have it not be a permanent structure. I wonder if there's some kind of workaround here. Does a stack of firewood require a building permit or a zoning permit? I don't think so.
So before I drop this evaporator in its final resting location for the season, I want to modify it slightly. Now when I have my big hot fire in this firebox, all that heat and smoke goes up, hits the bottom of the pants, which is what I want, and ideally it should go out the chimney. Well, the issue I have is every time I open the loading chamber door, there's no lip that helps to push that heat and smoke out the chimney. So what it does, every time I open the door, a lot of heat, hot gases, and smoke will escape into my face, and I don't want that. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a 6-inch piece of flat, weld it on the face right here, create a little lip, maybe a 2 or 3 inch lip. So hopefully that'll capture that heat and smoke and redirect it out the chimney.
thing is really cool. It'd be fun to camp in here. I'm not much of a camper though, but I could see a video like that doing very well. So first I want to talk about the roof. Now initially I was thinking about doing a peaked, kind of like a truss roof, but I got to thinking I don't want to draw any unwanted attention to the structure. Well, the firewood stack, right? This is a firewood stack. So I decided to just make a flat roof. Now for the roofing material itself, this is 12-foot long corrugated roof tin. This stuff was freaking expensive, about $30 a sheet. And this stuff is just so thin and flimsy. I almost didn't buy it, but I wanted a non-combustible roof, and this is what I got. It definitely needs to be supported, you know, every 2 to 3 feet, especially if you have a snow load, which there's going to be a snow load on this. Now, other things I'd like to do to kind of finish this up, that is not going to be in this video. I would like to add a little bit more firewood to the back stack here. It needs to come up a little bit higher, and I do need to add a door. That is a must. And then I'm going to run an extension cord out here, perhaps a TV, and we're just going to be nice and cozy in here when it comes time to boil sap. How many windows do I have in here? Well, I framed, or stacked rather, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 windows. Figure I'd have one a little bit lower so that way when I'm sitting in this chair I can look straight out, see if there's anything out there, which I feel like I'm going to be at least protected from the wind gusts in here. And the nice thing about this tin is it should radiate some of the heat from the fire back over in this direction. I'd love to get a little diesel heater in here. Maybe one of those companies will reach out to me. I think I ruined my relationship with Vever for calling them out on one of their terrible products, but there's always others. You know, I pride myself on my honesty, and that's worth a lot more to me than any piece of Chinese junk that one of these companies wants to send me. So anyway, tomorrow morning I'm going to come out here, do some drone shots, and that will be it for this project for now. Stay tuned for maple season. Probably going to be late January, early February this year because it is cold.